I'm going to be doing a review of Rosewood's straight bourbon and straight rye whiskeys. Before we get started, a little bit of a disclaimer. Have to let you know that I do know one of the founders personally. Two, I did not pay for these bottles. They were given to me so that I could do this review. And three, the independent bottler for this product is also my business partner on the Prideful Goat whiskey that I co-founded. So now that we got that out of the way, who's the producer? Well, it's a new non-distiller producer, and they are called Kentexian Bourbon L.L.C. They have 2 small batch bourbons plus a single barrel offering of rye. There's an Indiana straight bourbon that is 100 proof. That's a small batch, and it's $79.99. There's a Kentucky straight bourbon, also 100 proof, small batch for $79.99. And then there's the Kentucky straight rye, Kentucky straight bourbon, and Indiana straight bourbon single barrels that are all $99.99. All of these barrels spent at least one summer in Texas, which is going to have a big impact on the interaction between that whiskey and the barrel. It's a vintage label, I think from the 1930s. And you may have heard of this before because there was a bottle of Rosewood in the movie The Shawshank Redemption. The label is super sexy. It's embossed. It's done at McDowell's, which does a lot of the really high-end labels. It does come with a branded tamper seal that is vacuum sealed on there. And I'm not a huge fan of the tamper seal, mostly because when you open it, it ends up looking bad. Either you end up tearing the whole thing off like I did on the rye, or it's got this jagged edge like I've got here on the bourbon. So it looks good before you open the bottle, but after you open it, not the biggest fan of that. The liquid inside, we have a few different examples. So the Indiana bourbon is 75% corn, 21 rye, 4% malted barley, obviously from MGP. It's non-age stated, but it's rumored to be 7 to 8 years old. The small batch is 100 proof. The single barrels are all barrel proof, which turn out to be around 112 proof because of MGP's aging environment. The Kentucky bourbon is from Bardstown Bourbon Company. It is 70% corn, 19% rye, and 11% malted barley. Non-age stated, but rumored to be 5 to 6 years old. The small batch is 100 proof. The single barrels are all barrel proof as well. And those clock in at around 120 because in Kentucky, you've got a little bit more heat, a little less humidity. The Kentucky rye is a mash bill of 95% rye and 5% malted barley, but not from MGP, obviously, being a Kentucky. It is from Bardstown Bourbon Company. Also non-age stated, but rumored to be 5 to 6 years old. All of the ryes are going to be single barrels. They'll be barrel proof and they'll clock in around 120% because of the aging environment. So how does it taste? Well, I have 2 different examples for me to review for you. We'll start off with the bourbon, which is a single barrel and it is available online. The barrel is 15369. On the nose, we're getting a little bit of a dark chocolate. And there's some spearmint that's poking through. And there's a hint of smoke, which is a sign that it's been in the barrel for a little bit. There's a fruity note in here, and I think that it's more along the lines of like orange or orange zest. And, you know, being that it is a bourbon, there's some vanilla poking through. Let's see how it tastes. Vanilla's coming through strong, caramel. On MGP, not everybody gets this, but I get it. I don't know if it's genetic because I've run into people who feel very strongly that this tasting note is true and some that don't. But I get a bubble gum. It's like a Big League Chew bubble gum. I do get that orange, but I can taste that high rye in here too. So I'm getting some clove, maybe some nutmeg. And I'm still tasting that spearmint poking through. Let's move over to the Kentucky rye. So this one is also a single barrel. All the ryes will be single barrels. This is barrel number 21, also available on the website. The nose has peppermint, vanilla, and this one's a little bit different because I'm not getting as many baking spice notes. I'm getting a dark fruit, something that I normally don't get in American whiskeys. It's very sweet. And there's a bit of a graininess popping out that reminds me of like a breakfast cereal. Let's see how it tastes. That vanilla's coming through strong, but those dark fruit flavors are coming through stronger. I can say firmly that this whiskey has like a fig or a plum type flavor, a little bit darker, and it has a strong black tea component. I mean, this almost tastes like some sort of a berry tea or something. There's a hint of peppermint and a hint of cinnamon. Being a rye, that's not super surprising. But the dominant flavor for me is going to be that fig or plum. Recommendations? Well, I used to say that a bottle should be around $10 per year for a non-distiller producer. That equation doesn't really work with legacy distilleries because they have completely different cost structures. But for a new non-distiller producer, if you can release a bottle at $10 per year of age, I'm usually pretty happy with it. But with inflation, the cost of everything going up, transportation, gas, everything, I've been rounding that up to roughly $12 per year of age now. The Indiana bourbon is about on par. If it's close to 8 years old at $12, $80 for the small batch, $100 for the single barrel. It's not a bad value. The flavor's definitely there. And there's not a whole lot of MGP bourbon out on the market right now that's above 6 years old. And so it's pretty tasty. I feel like the bottle's pretty much on par. I haven't tried the Kentucky bourbon. On paper, it appears that it's going to be a little bit on the expensive side. But again, given the current economic climate and what's been going on with prices, it wouldn't surprise me if we start to see a lot more NDPs release products at this price point. So there's no real reason to avoid it. I'd say, just give it a try, see if it fits your palate, and see if it's worth it for you. Now, I will say that on paper, the Kentucky Rye appears to be a little bit on the expensive side, but it is so good that I don't care. If you can see these bottles, the rye is more than half gone, and it's because since I've gotten this bottle, I can't keep Lindsay out of it. She keeps coming and getting little pours. I've been sharing it with a lot of people. I would say that the bourbon was an exceptional cask strength version of good MGP bourbon. Something similar to what you'd get from like a Smoke Wagon or a Smooth Ambler, something like that, Blonde Brothers. But I don't know that I've ever tasted a rye like this, and all of the flavors are positive for my palate, which is why I keep sharing it with people. So even though it might be on the expensive side as a single barrel at $100, I will always have this on my shelf as long as it's available to buy. So if you're interested and you'd like to purchase some, this product can be bought at bourbonoutfitters.com. You can just go to bourbonoutfitters.com and search the word Rosewood, and all of their products and single barrels will come up. They ship to about 46 different states. So if you're one of the 4 that they don't ship to, I am sorry about that. But go out there, check it out, see if you liked it. I hope this information was useful for you. And if you found it helpful and you haven't already done so, I'd love it if you would subscribe. And as always, if you woke up this morning and you were unsure whether or not anyone loved you, just know that I love you. And I'll see you next time on Bourbon Real Talk.